Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Tech Tuesday. We've got a dynamic panel today. I don't think I've ever done one quite like this. This is a conversation that came out of, that was inspired coming out of CES a few weeks ago. But before we get into our conversation, this. Hey guys, Steve Moran here. Hey guys, welcome to Tech Tuesday. I'm going to just kind of work through from what I see on my screen. I guess it's not like Zoom where everybody has a different view. I think we all see the same thing. So George, you're on the top of the screen. I'd like to start with who you are and what you do, what you're passionate about.
Wonderful. Yeah, hi, Steve. My name is George Chatzipirpiridis. I'm the founder of a Swiss-based company called Magnes, and the product is actually this one. It's one of the smartest shoes you've ever seen. Inside here, we have a computer measuring how people or how patients are walking, and we calculate so-called gait parameters. So we're able to measure how happy or how sad, how depressed someone is, but more important, the shoe can vibrate, so it stimulates the user to alert if the risk of falling is too high, to help people with Parkinson or stroke, to make them walk again.
I love that. And I want to get more into that. And first off, I'm going to have to see if I need one of these pairs of shoes for me or my stepfather. So I want to talk about that in a minute. But Rick, let's go to you next.
Hi, I'm Rick Voight. I am founder, CEO of VividPix, and we help people relive memories, whether they are photographic memories or cerebral memories.
So you got to do a little bit more on the cerebral memory part.
Well, and that's why I brought along my smart friend, Josh. So what we do is photographic memories can serve as prompts in order to be able to help people remember. So whether it be that as we age, we want to exercise our brain, and it provides a wonderful hobby to exercise your brain. And then sometimes also that you may have cognitive decline, progressing to dementia. Photographic memories can help the caregiver as well as the loved one recall and connect.
Okay, very good. And one more question I have is, I have to ask you about your office that you're live streaming from today.
My office today is from a Mercedes Sprinter, which is a Coachman Galleria, and I get to travel about 4 to 6 months out of the year. I currently am in Amarillo, Texas, on my way to Salt Lake City, Utah, for the largest family history conference in the world.
Yeah, I think I would like to have that kind of a mobile office myself. I do a lot of streams from hotel rooms or other places in hotels. I did one last week, but having my own travel, is this sort of like, instead of flying like how John Madden used to do, that you drive around the country?
It is. So just pre-COVID, I did the analysis and I looked at flights and hotels and meals and shipping stuff to shows, and it was affordable to purchase a very nice van. And through COVID, it was wonderful to have. And I'm now actually on my second one. I've driven coast to coast to coast, pushing a dozen times.
Wow, that's terrific. And Dr. Joshua.
Yeah, hi. I'm the Chief Research Officer for the Certis Institute. I also work with Certis Senior Living and also the Chief Education Officer for the National Institute for Dementia Education. So we provide dementia certification and training, but also digging down into the research of the different types of dementia, as most people in the industry is starting to really catch on. There's over 100 different types of conditions that cause dementia, but how does our behaviors or somatic influence change those things? And working with Rick on the power of a photo to bring back memories and spark neuroplasticity and neurogenesis and provide quality of life for those living with dementia, to find kind of new ways to revisit past joys. So that's kind of me in a nutshell.
Okay, terrific. Well, I'm gonna see if I can get some personal value out of you today. My I've written about this fairly extensively. My stepfather has got dementia. He lives with us. He did a senior living journey. We're actually just seem to be in the last few weeks sort of in a new transitional phase, sliding downhill. And so maybe I can learn something personally here. So, but George, I want to come back to you and talk to you a little bit about this shoe. So, as the three of you know, our primary audience are people who work in the senior living space. And we know in the industry that technology already plays an important role and and it's both evolving and the importance is growing. One of the, it helps with staffing challenges and keeping costs down and simply providing better care. And so I'd like to really dig into sort of the inspiration and the thinking behind your shoes and kind of the kinds of people it's good for and the problems it solves.
Yeah. So measuring how someone is walking, we can correlate then how healthy our brain is. So by measuring how someone is walking, you can capture signals of depression, capture signs of dementia, Alzheimer's, or stroke. So we do walking without thinking, but it's actually a very complex task. So when we have, for example, a dementia patient, if he walks with our shoes, we are able to pick up that signal. And what the shoe then does is it creates so-called baselines. So we are able to share this data with neurologists or healthcare providers, so they know where they are in the state of the disease. But what it really brings directly to the patient is the fact that the shoe can vibrate, so it stimulates, and this can reduce the risk of falls. And that's one of the major impacts when it comes to elderly, when it comes to neurological diseases. When we met at the CES, so there I was also showing the Parkinson videos. So the shoes are able to detect something called freezing of gait. So literally, while someone is walking, they might freeze and cannot continue. And the shoe detects that, stimulates with vibration to overcome freezing. So it's yeah.
So is what's the right question? Who should be wearing the shoes? I mean, I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, so should everybody who lives in a senior living community, everyone have a pair of these shoes they're wearing every day? Do I need a pair of these shoes? Who should wear them?
Everybody. So on one hand, we are installing the shoes with neurologists and with PTs, so they can measure and create baselines, have reference values of each individual to know where they are. Even if they're healthy, we know where they are. A bit like blood pressure. We know if it's too high or too low, something's wrong. The same applies to so-called gait parameters. But when it comes to senior living, the best is to wear them, especially if the risk of fall is high. If they know that they are walking unstable, if they have balance issues, the shoes can be a game changer.
Cool. And what do they cost? And what about charging?
Yeah, excellent question. So they are around 2,000 USDs, and you wirelessly charge them. So you put them on a little carpet, similar to an iPhone, and you wireless charge them.
Okay.
So in this shoe here, we have Bluetooth, we have Wi-Fi, we have the entire sole full of sensors measuring pressure distribution, and it's always measures how I'm moving, when I'm standing, when I'm sitting, how I'm turning, how I'm distributing balance, and calculates.
So it's not a shoe. So I do I get out and I walk 4 or 5 miles a day. Probably wouldn't be a good shoe for me because I run through the soles too fast. Could get pretty expensive, right?
Yeah, so it depends. So if you are not able to walk and this shoe enables you to walk again, so you will be wearing it every day.
Okay. And then how does the data come out of the shoes? How do I get how is that extracted?
Through the smartphone. So the shoes are connected via Bluetooth to the smartphone, and then through the smartphone, they're pushed to the server where additional analysis runs and automated reports are generated.
Okay. And do you have any notion, or again, I'm thinking in terms of senior living, and if I had, 20 people in my senior living community, or maybe I had everybody who was in my memory care in these shoes dashboard to be able to see everybody's data at a single time or to get alerts or that kind of thing?
Exactly, yes. So everybody that uses the shoe can grant access to the dashboard. And
Okay.
there is a healthcare professional, a physical therapist that has then access to all of his users and can visualize what's happening.
Perfect. Okay, Rick, let's talk a little bit about what you're doing and how you're changing the world.
I love the way you phrase that, actually, because that is one of my goals. So if you think about photos, we have taken photos for a very long time, many, many years. And with that, Madison Avenue, for lack of a better word, and Eastman Kodak for many years, got us to take these photographs. And as we relive memories through these photographs, we're reminded of wonderful times, where we've been, and it also can connect us with people who came before us. So we've been in the photo. Well, I've been in the photo industry for 40 years this year. Vivid Pics, we've been in business for 12, and we actually started out fixing underwater photos. And then somebody said, have you ever thought about improving old faded photos? Because through time, age, heat, we lose quality of image. And then we fixed those images. And now with the memory station, we're able to help people scan to restore the images so that they look better, to record a voice memory so that we're then able to create an MP4 video so that people are able to share their past memories with themselves in a future state dimension, the like, with caregivers to better explain who they are, and then also to have a nice activity with a caregiver and a loved one, as opposed to watching Lawrence Welk on TV. You can actually reminisce and relive these wonderful memories. And then as cognitive decline may increase, those memories can be used as prompts before visitors, loved ones come to visit, or to remind the person of their past. So lots of different ways it can be used.
So walk me through sort of the process. I look at this and I say, okay, so I think what I'm hearing, I think, is two use cases. So one would be a use case that here I am, I'm 70 years old, I'm looking into the future, I'm thinking dementia could happen in my life, and so I'm going to create this photo / memory vault just in case.
Absolutely. And what's fun about that, absolutely. And what's fun about that is most of us would like to relive our memories. And we have this legacy desire. We have this desire to empty out our shoe boxes and to share our stories. So it's not a stressful, it's not a hard working thing to do. It's actually fun to reminisce those wonderful memories.
Okay, so talk to me about. Josh, I can see you have stuff to say, and I'm gonna get to you in just a second.
Yeah, no worries.
Yeah, I've got some questions relative to music and all of this as well. I'm going to start that with a story. But Rick, so I decide I want to do this. What how does that? What happens? How do I interact with you to make this happen?
Absolutely. So we have software, and that software, the memory station software, you asked the question, $200. And that software is actually able to connect with virtually any scanner. So you can have an HP all-in-one, you can have an Epson, and you could have downloaded, digitized your images through a legacy box or anyone else. 2, you take those digital files and you run it through Restore. 3, you add the voice. 4, you create the movies, and you can move them around and chronologically do things. Now, those flatbed scanners in the all-in-ones, they're a little slow when they're scanning. So we actually have an archive quality scanner working with what is now Ricoh, previously Fujitsu, where we took control of the middleware, for lack of a better word, between the scanner and your computer to create this archive quality. And we can actually scan up to 10 images, automatically cropping and straightening them so that it's extremely fast and easy to capture those images. And that retail price is $7.99. So a very high-end scanner plus the software, including the software.
So would this also, do you see use in a senior living community where people are already starting to see cognitive decline? And I'm going to, Josh, I'm going to maybe think I'm going to come to you and have you talk a little bit about all this, particularly since Rick just disappeared on us.
No worries. And so we actually have our second phase of research. So we did our first phase of research with college students during COVID to make sure we could allow people not to have as much social isolation. And what we noticed is we tracked themes. So for example, throughout this project, we actually learned that if you give the right photo to a nurse, residents that are non-medicine compliant are up to 50% more likely to take their medicine by just getting that nurse to select the right types of photos to sit down to be able to actually talk to that resident before giving medicine. So instead of being task-oriented, we really preach the experience orientation. So selecting or prescribing the right photos for people can really open the doors.
So can you talk to me a little bit about the photo types that work best and what this may be the science behind it?
So what we're noticing is that things like animals are a great way to connect, but then also even family photos in general, and approaching those the right way, not do you remember, but how do you feel about this photo or what's in this photo really opens up the door quite a bit. But we've even noticed this in memory care, and I'm sure there's plenty of people on this call that are watching this. A lot of people with dementia will say, I want to go home. I want to go home. However, psychologically, home isn't always the physical structure. It's a feeling of comfort. So what we've noticed is actually taking a photo of their home, framing it and putting it outside their door. And when they ask to go home, getting the caregivers just to go over and say, oh, is this your home? And most of the time say yes. And they walk in, they're like, here's my stuff. And you can eliminate that thing from and to avoid some of the things like eloping or residents getting out. So using photos intentionally to make a difference. So that's what our research is really showing, is in addition to improving the quality and archiving those for conversations, is how do you ergonomically use a photo to improve dementia care and kind of help caregivers allow people to age in place at home or within a residential community.
So, okay, so we're gonna do a little Steve Moran therapy here with this for just a minute. So I've got my almost 92-year-old stepfather with us, and he's sort of early to mid-stage Alzheimer's. And more recently, one of the ways he's kind of stayed connected with the world is phone calls to old friends. And he doesn't have a lot of family members left. There weren't, his grandmother raised him, and there were a bunch of uncles to him who didn't have kids, so very little there. But he stayed connected by phone. And more recently, he seems to be very uninterested in even the phone calls. And so I'm finding myself thinking maybe one of the things I ought to do is go get photographs of these people he's been talking with to put in front of him to inspire him. Does that make sense? Is that a good idea?
For sure. So what you're doing is you're tapping into the occipital lobe, a different part of the brain that doesn't always have to pull. So what you're doing is creating a multimodality that you're giving them more exposure to more information. So breaking it down a little bit differently, a lot of people with dementia don't realize they have to open the closet to get their clothes. But if you actually take a picture of a clothes on a clothes hanger and put it on that closet, it automatically prompts them to pull from neurogenesis those past memories. So by you putting a photo in front of that phone before calling them, yes, it will prompt those things. And what I would actually suggest, having a conversation 10 to 15 minutes before, like, hey, on the schedule, we actually have a call, or you're going to be calling your friend Josephine in 20 minutes, is actually showing that photo a few times before. Research shows if you have exposure to that. And what I say is if the first time it doesn't work, the literature shows that it takes somebody with dementia 35 days to create a habit. So really doing that for 35 days will help them actually create that habit and maintain it longer too as well.
Okay, couple more questions for you. One of the great tragedies we had is that he So he was married to my mom for 35 years. Before he was married to my mom, he was married to another woman. They got divorced. Talking to friends who sort of know say the divorce was pretty awful, but he pines for her. And she recently passed away, and he maintained a relationship with her, and it was all fine. It wasn't contentious. Everybody got along. And she recently passed away. But one of the things that we really struggled through is that her death has hit him new probably a dozen times. We're very much more careful. We learned that and he seems to have some knowledge. Should we show him pictures of her, or does that just reopen old wounds? Thoughts?
It really depends on where they are in their stage. So there's something called the global deterioration scale, which is the 7 stages. And depending on what stage that they're in and what type of dementia, it could have a negative or a positive effect. So it's trial and error, but be very cautious of them. Okay. And also how you revisit those too. So our brains are hardwired to be more negative at times. It's a survival mechanism. So making sure we approach it the right way. So it might even just be a simple photo and passing. I would stick that photo maybe with other photos and see how we interacts with that, and maybe he'll be like, oh, I don't like that person, or oh, I remember this, and kind of let him navigate it with you through choice. There's something called retrogenesis too. I won't take too much time, but you develop skills in life, you get dementia, you lose them in order opposite. So for example, you have 3 kids and you call everyone by your eldest child. So depending on where they are on that retrogenesis scale, you're going to get a different reaction. But if you just type in retrogenesis and reminiscing or whatever, it might give you some good insight on how to visit that too as well. Or we can do a one-off, and I'm happy to walk you through that too as well.
Yeah, I think probably I'd love to be able to do that. So one more question, Josh, for you and Rick is, I was at a conference in LA last week, and like you, Rick, I did this calculation. I actually bought an airline ticket from Sacramento to Los Angeles, and then I started thinking through it, and I thought, by the time I drive to the airport, wait for a plane, fly down, get off, take a taxi back to the hotel, which is was in northern Los Angeles, I could drive it in about the same amount of time. So I did this 6-hour drive down. The next day I did a 6-hour drive back. I listened to a lot of audiobooks, but just as I was leaving the hotel in downtown Los Angeles, the audiobook ran out and I didn't want to stop to get a new book loaded up. And so I popped in my Sirius XM and put on 70s music. And I spent this delightful time sort of listening to this music of my teens and early 20s. That was and it just made me feel good. So where does music fit into all this phototherapy?
So because I spend so much time driving, I also love music. So hopefully you were listening to 308 Deep Tracks on Sirius Radio.
I don't think I knew that one.
Yep, 308, which is Deep Tracks, wonderful tunes. And it is a wonderful way to pass the time. It's interesting. My Saturday morning was driving from Louisville, Kentucky to St. Louis, and it was just relaxing. I was just connecting with a couple of phone calls with friends, a couple of tunes along the way, and it relaxes me. Josh, gosh, have you ever been involved in music and how that might help dementia folks?
So I was originally a music therapist, so that's how I got into this line of work. Is music is super powerful, but there's something called the client preferred music, which is the ages of 18 to 25. And what the literature shows is that is the music that resonates the best. For example, if you take that music and put it on an alarm clock for waking up, if somebody wakes up to one of their favorite songs during that generation that they listen to, it releases oxytocin and you can decrease sundowning later on. You can improve sleep cycles over time. So music is incredibly impactful. It's also processed in every part of the brain. And what's great about it is music can actually help people that have aphasia with difficulty speaking speak again. It's called melodic intonation therapy. So you have people speak to melody. And I've seen this so many times. People that can't speak will speak at someone's wedding for the first time in 2 years. It's incredible to see the power of music.
Yeah, I know there was a guy, I think it was called Alive Inside. This guy was collecting the early Apple iPods, right, to do music, some sort of music. I don't know if therapy would be quite the right word, but sort of music activities for people with dementia. And they had a really, really powerful video on their homepage. I don't know whether they're still doing that or not, but I really like that a lot. So we've got about 5 minutes left. I want to make sure I give each of you a chance to sort of talk about how people can access your product and how they can learn more. So, George, I'm going to start with you.
Yeah, wonderful. So in our case, so the company is called Magnus, and the shoe it's called New Shoe, and you can just write us on our website chat. We're very active. We also have an online shop, but we have to first measure the patient before selling the shoes. So we have test centers in place in California, in Florida, and New York at the moment, where people can go and try out the shoe and experience also the stimulation. Because once you feel it, you immediately know how much it can help you or not.
Okay, so I'm gonna go personal here, right? So I'm in Sacramento. Where do I go to do this with my stepfather?
In Sacramento, you can go to our website and check it out, which would be the closest place to try them out. But I would suppose it's gonna be probably San Francisco.
Okay.
Because
so
I'm not sure. Actually, we might have someone in Sacramento as well, but I have to double check.
Okay, yeah. So I'd love to know that. I could see this being a really good fit for him. And Rick, how do people find you and your product?
Well, I want to comment first. So the National Institutes of Health describe reminiscence therapy as creating conversation connection through photos, music, tying together photos, tying together music is a wonderful way to connect. Getting in touch with VividPix, memorystation.com is the easiest way to reach us. The name of our company is VividPix, so VIVID -Pix, P as in Paul IX. But because Memory Station is a lot easier to roll off the tongue, memorystation.com comes right over to the Memory Station page on our site.
Terrific. I appreciate that. So as actually Rick and Josh, maybe we can dig just a little bit more into your product in terms of, we talked a little bit about people my age, and Josh, you gave me some good advice for sort of people who are older, who have dementia. But I guess my question is, from a senior living perspective, how do senior living operators use what you're doing? How do they take advantage of this when you've got 20 or 30 or 40 residents in a memory care, and then you've probably got assisted living where you've got a fair number of people who have cognitive decline there as well?
It's actually a great way throughout the entire aging span. So it doesn't have to be specifically for that, but our brains are hardwired for human connection. So what we've noticed is small and large groups is that it will ripple out. So even parallel programming, you'll have caregivers that learn through these sessions about their residents, and they use that as tools for connection. So if somebody's having an aggressive moment or is sad, they can validate and use the information they actually learn in these sessions to apply it to better connect to them. So we've noticed it in small group. We've seen it in groups as I work in assisted living primarily. So we'll have groups of 15 people that get to learn about one another, and they actually have connection where you see those conversations leave that room, and they actually do independent conversations. So it could be small or big group or even one-on-one connections.
And so it starts with photographs from people's past that they talk about?
Yeah, and our research even studied stock photos. Like, how do you have a conversation around just a picture of an apple tree? Is how do you reminisce about that? And what happens is we technically have 3 brains, won't get too big into it, but our body has memory too. So when they have these conversations, their body is remembering experiences of the fall and the cold. So training the people that run these sessions to be able to leverage that, whether it's with an item, a relatable photo, or even a stock photo, is how to use a photo for connection.
Yeah, it makes sense, right? We see picture. I know, I'll see a picture online that, either as of someplace I've been to or someplace that looks like something I've been to, and it brings back these fond memories. So it makes perfect sense.
And if I could, Steve, if I could, one other thing. So Josh mentioned in that response that we've done primary research in photoreminiscence therapy. And so with that, we've also developed education for loved ones as well as professionals in order to get CE credits in order to be able to use in their practice, but in their vocation. So once you're on the VividPix site, in the navigation bar is education. And in that education, you'll see our primary research, you'll see the courses that are available, and Josh just did a wonderful job creating all that.
And honestly, Steve, if people run into it too from a dementia perspective, our whole team volunteers every Wednesday from 12 to 1 just to answer questions about dementia. So if they reach out through the National Institute for Dementia Education on their website or the Certis Institute, we actually just help families navigate. And we're going to be having a whole bunch of education series to help families at home be able to connect with their loved ones. So
terrific. This has been great. Rick, George, Josh, thank you so much for joining us. We'll be back with our next broadcast on Foresight TV on Friday. I just want to thank all of you. I know that those you that are watching, you're changing the world. You're making a better place for older people, team members, and families. So I thank you for that. And I'll see you again in a few days.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you. Bye-bye.